This one is a stunning hybrid that has been around for some time. Echeveria Blue Bird is said to be a creation of the famous hybridizer Frank Reynolds. The parents used to create Bluebird are likely to be Echeveria colorata and Echeveria desmetiana. The result is absolutely stunning and worthy of front row in any collection. Bluebird can however be a bit tricky to grow and may not be the best choice if you're new to succulents. It is susceptible to a few diseases specific to Echeveria and dislikes humidity and wet weather. But with a bit of know-how and extra TLC, these issues can be overcome. Bluebird is not a huge plant and grows to about 15 cm or 6 inches in diameter in ideal conditions. Height-wise, it reaches around 12 cm or 5 inches, though it tends to grow taller if the light is insufficient. Bluebird often grows as a solitary rosette, but mature plants can sometimes produce offsets. The leaves are stacked and grow a pointy tip. They are covered in a thick layer of farina. The whitey waxy substance acts like a sunscreen for succulents and should be preserved as much as possible. The farina is also responsible for the attractive pastel color. During the growing season, Bluebird tends to be a light blue-gray, but once stressed, the leaves can have a subtle pink hue. The very tip can turn a pinkish color when it starts getting cool. Echeveria Bluebird loves the sun and will grow best in a bright sunny spot outdoors. It does tolerate outdoor shade and filtered light, but is likely not to get colorful. It can grow leggy, tall and stretched as a result. It's also more likely to suffer from disease such as powdery mildew, rot or edema if grown in too much shade. Bluebird is not suitable to be grown indoors long term and will likely eventually die unless you have plant growing lights, a sunroom or a huge sunny window. It should however tolerate overwintering and short stays indoors as long as it's kept in a super bright spot. Bluebird is best grown in pots due to its size, but can also be grown in sunny frost-free gardens. If in pots, repotting every year or so will help the plant grow better. It will tolerate being root bound but may start losing leaves and grow tall as a result. It may also not grow big when root space is limited. Bluebird can be grown in the garden in the right climate. It's unlikely to survive frost, snow or tropical climates. To help it establish and grow better, mix any type of potting mix in with the garden soil. Echeveria roots tend to be quite thin and can find it difficult to break through hard garden soil. By cultivating and mixing in a bit of potting mix, you'll add nutrients and improve the soil structure. If you want to grow Bluebird in the garden, it's best to choose a slope, raised beds or a spot where water doesn't pool after the rain. In pots, the best medium to use is succulent potting mix. It will have the right pH and nutrients tailored to succulent plants. As mentioned earlier, when planting in the garden, make sure to cultivate the soil. So this is where you may go wrong with the Bluebird, as it can suffer water-related disease. It is best that watering is controlled and the plant may need to be brought under cover when rain sets in after a few days. How well the potting mix drains and the position can influence Bluebird's tolerance of rain. I grow all of my nursery Bluebirds outdoors most of the time, though I do make sure their potting mix has a bit of extra perlite for super fast drainage. They are also in a full sun position. I only bring them into a rainproof greenhouse during wet La Nina years. When they're under cover, I water whenever the potting mix dries out completely. If you want a pristine farina, watering the soil only and not wetting the leaves too often will help achieve that. Bluebird is quite drought tolerant as well and can go without water for a long time depending on the temperature. But in my opinion, it should not be left too dry for too long, as it may start losing leaves. Temperature wise, Bluebird will tolerate heat well over 40 degrees Celsius or 104 Fahrenheit, though it should be moved out of the sun once it gets this hot. If exposed to direct sun during extreme heat waves, the leaves can suffer sunburn and the plant could die, especially when planted in dark colored pots. Bluebird may tolerate very light frost to about -1 degree Celsius, but is not likely to survive when frost settles for too long or when it snows. Frost cloth can be used to protect your succulents from the occasional frost, but if your climate gets snow, I'd advise to bring this plant indoors for the duration. Bluebird can be a bit difficult to propagate as it doesn't grow very many offsets and the leaves tend to fail often. If you're thinking seeds, I wouldn't really recommend this as it's hard to find a reliable seed seller and they are not easy to raise. There is, however, a way to force new growth. It will take a bit of time, but you can gain around 6 new plants. What you'll need to do is stop or behead your bluebird. While this may seem a bit drastic, it will make the plant grow 1 or more new heads. Here's how you do it. The best thing to use so you don't damage too many leaves is a very thin string. Tooth floss or fishing line are ideal. A few leaves need to remain at the bottom, but you can't go too high, otherwise the top rosette can fall apart. Once you've separated the top, it will need to dry for about 24 hours so the wound heals. This will prevent harmful organisms residing in soil from easily getting into the plant. Once the wound is dry, you can plant the head into a new pot filled with succulent potting mix. As for the bottom part, it's now a waiting game. New growth should appear in about a month. It can take up to 6 months for the heads to become big enough to separate. This here is 6 months from beheading. The best time to do this is spring or early summer. Do make sure to protect your plant from hot summer sun as new growth can easily burn. I wouldn't recommend beheading too close to winter as bluebird is going to be dormant in most climates. You may be able to get away with it if your winters are mild, but the plant can still struggle to produce any new growth. If you do want to try leaf propagation, by all means give it a go. I have had a few leaves grow successfully, but for me at least they fail more often than not. They are quite easy to remove and I'd suggest to do it around mid-spring or when the plant is actively growing. If you've managed to propagate bluebird from leaves, let us know in the comments. Because bluebird can be so difficult to propagate, I usually get mine as tiny tissue cultures. They can take anything up to a year to grow to full size, but are totally worth it. If you're thinking of selling succulents, buying tissue culture is an awesome way to get lots of disease-free cheap plants. Bluebird can be pretty susceptible to all the succulent pests. Aphids can appear in great numbers when flower stalks start growing and will not only feed off the inflorescence but can spill down onto the leaves. Foliar-feeding mealybugs are not particularly attracted to bluebird but can still attack. Root mealybugs on the other hand love to feed on Echeveria roots and are very common. They prefer root-bound plants. This is why checking on the health of the roots can be important. Bigger pests such as snails, slugs, caterpillars and grasshoppers can pose a threat too. If larger chunks go missing, one of them is likely to be the culprit. The blooms grow above the rosette and form an arch. Each arch has about 10 individual pink and orange flowers. Here in Australia, bluebird flowers at the end of winter and throughout early spring, but this can be different in other parts of the world. All Echeveria are said to be non-toxic to dogs, cats, other pets, livestock and humans. Having said that, I would not advise chopping it up into a salad just in case. And that is all for today. I hope this video was useful, and if you have anything to add or would like to ask a question, you can do so in the comments below. To learn more about succulents, hit the subscribe button or go to succulentgrowingtips.com. Thank you so very much for watching.